The first warning came like a thunderclap across the void, a tremor so vast that every listening post from the Arctic Circle to the Nevada desert jolted awake. Even before the numbers were confirmed, everyone felt it in their bones. Something enormous was coming, and Earth had only a heartbeat to prepare. People would later say that on that night, the sky over North America looked alive. Bright threads streaked across the stratosphere as defense satellites moved into emergency positions, their faint blue glimmers tracing arcs above the cities below. And beneath that drifting light show, a single human stood watching from the high ridge of the Rocky Mountains. Her name was Commander Lyra Mason. She had seen war before, but nothing like this. The tactical displays hovering beside her showed hostile signatures unlike any recorded in Earth's archives. Massive fleets, dense formation, hundreds upon hundreds of vessels, each larger than the last. They called themselves the Drathkori Dominion, an empire that had swallowed entire systems without slowing, sweeping aside any civilization that tried to resist. On this night, they arrived at Earth expecting another easy victory. Lyra's breath frosted in the cold mountain air. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind move past her like an ancient whisper, grounding her before the storm. Earth was not ready. Not technologically, not militarily, but surrender was not in the human vocabulary. She opened her eyes and said the same words that generations of soldiers repeated in their darkest moments. "All right, time to punch above our weight." The defense grid came online in a cascade of low hums. Across the continents, human crews snapped into action. Technicians in hardened bunkers, pilots in launch silos, volunteers lined up in emergency stations. Humanity had never been so unified. Fear wasn't gone, but it had turned into something sharper, something fierce. The alien fleet pierced the upper atmosphere with a quiet, rolling shimmer, as if reality itself had rippled under their arrival. Lyra's display filled with alerts, each one more urgent than the last. The Drathkori began a transmission, broadcast across every human channel in cold, emotionless tones. The words were simple: yield or be removed. But humans had a habit of making the universe underestimate them. The moment the final syllable faded, the first human strike lit the sky. A shockwave of brilliant white shot up from the eastern seaboard, powered by tech so new it barely had a name, experimental fusion lances created by the brightest minds Earth had ever produced. The beam didn't destroy the leading Drathkori ship, but it made it flinch. And for the first time in centuries, the Drathkori faltered. Lyra watched the sensor feed in stunned silence. No one had expected the beam to land, let alone stagger a ship that weighed more than a small moon. The commander tapped her comlink.
"Broadcast to global forces. The enemy can bleed. Move to Phase 2. Around her, the world roared to life. Fighter wings launched from hidden mountain bays. Orbital platforms realigned with sharp metallic clicks. Civilians sheltered underground, listening to distant rumbling that sounded like storms rolling over continents. Humanity had just done the impossible, stood its ground long enough to make an empire pause. But Lyra knew this was only the first tremor of a much larger quake. The Drathkori were regrouping, recalibrating, preparing to unleash their full strength. She looked up at the sky, now flickering with battle light, and felt something stirring deep within her chest. Not fear, but a stubborn, blazing certainty. Humans had been outnumbered. They had been outgunned, but they were not out of the fight. Not now, not ever. And what came next would decide the fate of an entire species. If humanity failed, Earth would fall silent forever. If humanity succeeded, the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Lyra steadied herself as the alien armada shifted formation, preparing their next strike. A faint rumble passed through the mountains, like the world itself bracing for impact. The real battle was about to begin. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more cosmic tales of human courage. The first wave hit Earth like a rolling storm, sweeping across the upper atmosphere with shimmering arcs of alien energy.
From the command ridge in the Rockies, Commander Lyra Mason watched the sky ignite in streaks of white and pale gold as human interceptors surged upward to meet the oncoming barrage. The sound of those engines echoed across the mountains, deep and steady, like the heartbeat of a world refusing to bow. Lyra leaned over the tactical display, tracking every squadron as they darted between the descending alien formations. Human ships were smaller, lighter, less shielded, but they were also faster, and every pilot flying tonight had trained for situations that were supposed to be impossible. No one expected humans to last this long, least of all the Drathkori. As the alien cruisers advanced, their hulls glowed with faint lines of shifting geometric patterns, technology far beyond human understanding. They moved in perfect sync, never colliding, never hesitating, each ship acting as though guided by a single shared instinct. Then something unexpected happened. A single alien vessel broke formation. It drifted closer to Earth than the others, holding its position as if studying the planet with new curiosity. Its underbelly opened, revealing a circular aperture pulsing with dim violet light. Lyra exhaled slowly. "That's a scanning array," she murmured. "They're trying to read us. They're trying to figure out how we hit them." The fusion lance strike in the first minutes of the battle had rattled the Drathkori more deeply than they wanted to admit. They had faced rebellions, uprisings, and desperate planetary defense systems before. But none of those had sent an experimental energy beam straight through one of their warships' forward plating. Human unpredictability, once again rewriting the universe's assumptions. "Commander," came a voice through the comm. It belonged to Captain Wren Arkwright, leader of Strike Wing Ember. "We're in position. Just give the word and we'll take out that scanner." Lyra hesitated. Every instinct told her the alien ship was gathering crucial intel. But something else tugged at her thoughts, something she couldn't explain. For the Drathkori to pause in combat, for them to shift from aggression to analysis, it wasn't typical of the Empire's behavior. They didn't study their prey, they overwhelmed it. She tapped her display and zoomed in. The light inside the scanner grew brighter, almost rhythmic, like a pulse. Not simply gathering data, probing. "What are you looking for?" she whispered. Below her, the Earth Defense Coalition continued firing upward, lighting the sky with brilliant arcs. But the Drathkori ship didn't fire back. It only watched. Then, without warning, a surge of static cut through every channel. Screens flickered, sensors glitched, even the mountain air seemed to vibrate. A voice emerged, not human, not alien in any familiar way. Cold, measured, layered with metallic undertones. "Origin species classified anomalous. Resistance parameters exceeding projections. Revising threat scale." Lyra's stomach tightened. They weren't scanning Earth to understand human weapons. They were scanning Earth to understand humanity itself. The violet glow intensified, filling the clouds below with shimmering reflections. Lyra stepped back instinctively, as though the light were reaching for her through the air. "Ren," she said sharply, "take it out, now." The captain didn't hesitate. A streak of human fighters rose in a tight formation, their engines leaving bright trails in the night sky. They arced upward, looping with sharp precision toward the scanning vessel. Then, as they closed in, the alien ship shifted. Not moving away, not attacking, simply tilting, as if turning an unseen eye toward the pilots approaching it. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the ship emitted a single soft pulse of violet light, silent but powerful enough to ripple the clouds for miles. Lyra's display went blank. Comms went dead. The mountains fell silent. Every human system within sight flickered, failing one by one, until all that remained was darkness. And in that sudden stillness, Lyra felt a chill settle into her bones. The Drathkori had come to conquer, but now they had found something they didn't expect. Something about humanity that changed the shape of the battle. A faint tremor shook the air as the alien ship realigned its aperture directly toward the ground. Lyra whispered, "What did we just awaken?" The scanner flared brighter. Then, brighter still. And the sky above Earth held its breath. For a long moment, the world seemed to hang in a strange, breathless quiet. Commander Lyra Mason stood frozen on the ridge, staring at the sky as the alien scanner's violet glow brightened to a near-blinding shimmer. Every defense system around her had crashed. Every sensor had flickered into darkness. Every comm line had gone silent. It felt as if Earth itself had been unplugged from the universe. But then, slowly, the silence began to shift. A low hum rolled across the Rockies, deep, steady, rising from beneath the mountains like the awakening of a giant long asleep. Lyra felt the vibration through her boots, up her spine, into her chest. It was not alien. It was not electrical failure. It was something human. A hidden system coming online. She spun toward the source. Massive metal plates were sliding open across the far slope of the mountain range, revealing a long-buried facility that only a handful of individuals on the planet even knew existed. Project Hearthcore. Built in secret over many years by scientists who believed humanity would eventually face a threat beyond its limits. A system meant to protect Earth when everything else failed. A system that required power levels too extreme to store above ground. Lyra exhaled in disbelief. We weren't ready for this battle, but Hearthcore is. As the enormous blast doors finished opening, a pillar of warm orange light surged upward, forming a column that spiraled into the sky like a beacon. It wasn't a weapon. Not yet. It was a signal. A message sent not to the Drathkori, but to humanity. Across North America, then across the Pacific, then across the night side of the planet, lights flickered back to life. Small at first, then stronger, spreading in a ripple of resilience. Backup grids activated, local generators engaged, long-range comm towers rebooted one by one. Human systems were recovering faster than alien interference could suppress them. The Drathkori vessel watching from above tilted again, its violet scanner shifting as if puzzled. It emitted another pulse, stronger, deeper, meant to disable Earth's grid once more. But the wave hit the Hearthcore field and simply broke apart, dissipating harmlessly into glittering fragments that rained down like sparks. The alien ship paused. Then the sky rumbled. Captain Ren Arkwright's voice crackled through the comlink, distorted but alive. "Commander, Emberwing is still operational. We're regrouping at low altitude." Relief washed through Lyra, but it didn't last. She could still see the scanner vessel's glow intensifying. Whatever the Drathkori had detected in humanity, they weren't stepping back. They were recalculating. And recalculating usually meant escalation. "Ren," she said, steadying her tone, "keep your formation low and wait for my signal."
Hearthcore's field won't hold forever. Below them, the facility continued to hum, channeling power upward through invisible lines that threaded deep into the Earth's crust. Human ingenuity, born from desperation, fueled by thousands of problem solvers who had spent years preparing for threats they couldn't define. Lyra tapped her wrist console. "Hearthcore, activate Phase 1. A soft series of tones responded, followed by a single message. "Phase 1 acknowledged, calibrating Earthborn array." High above, the Drathkori armada began to shift. Hundreds of ships reoriented their positions, forming a broad circular pattern like an iron halo around the planet. It was an intimidation display, one the Empire used only when preparing to unleash overwhelming force. Lyra felt the pressure of it, an invisible weight pushing down on her shoulders. But instead of fear, a spark of stubborn fire flared inside her. Humans had always pushed back hardest when the universe backed them into a corner. The alien scanner pulsed again, brighter than before. A wide beam of violet energy descended through the clouds, aiming straight for the Hearthcore facility. The ground trembled, trees shook, dust lifted from the ridge beneath Lyra's feet. She tapped her comm. "Hearthcore, raise the Earthborn shield." A new burst of orange light erupted from the mountain, shaping itself into a dome of shimmering energy that caught the incoming beam like a protective shell. The impact was silent but powerful, rippling across the shield like a pebble dropped into still water. For a few seconds, the entire world seemed to vibrate. Then, the shield held. Lyra's breath escaped in a quiet, awed whisper. "Humanity holds the line." But the scanner ship wasn't finished. As the shield steadied, the alien vessel's glow turned darker, shifting from violet to deep, pulsing indigo. Whatever was coming next, it would be far worse. The vessel tilted slowly, deliberately, like a predator sizing up prey that had suddenly proven more dangerous than expected. And high above them, the Drathkori armada began to charge their main weapons. Lyra steadied herself against the rising wind, watching as the sky turned a stormy swirl of energy and light. The next strike would decide whether Earth stood or fell. And humanity had only moments left to answer it. The sky over Earth shifted into a strange twilight, even though the night was already deep. Commander Lyra Mason stood beneath a swirling canopy of colors, orange from the Hearthcore shield, indigo from the alien scanner, and pale streaks from distant human fighters. It felt like standing at the center of a storm that spanned an entire planet. Above her, the Drathkori armada continued to rearrange into a broad, circular formation. Dozens upon dozens of massive ships glowed along their edges, each gathering power for something far beyond a simple strike. Lyra had studied enough alien warfare patterns to know what was coming. A Dominion convergence blast. A combined assault that no known species had ever survived. Not a single one. She steadied her breath and tapped her comm. "Ren, status." Captain Ren Arkwright responded at once, though his voice carried a rasp of static. "Emberwing is holding. We've got damage, but all fighters are still airborne. We're ready for whatever's next." "That whatever is about to be the biggest shot the galaxy has ever seen," Lyra said. "But we're not retreating." Ren exhaled softly. "Didn't think we were." Lyra looked up just as the first Drathkori ships reached full charge. The indigo glow deepened, painting the sky in ghostly shadows.
The scanner vessel nearer to Earth pulsed in sync with them, receiving and transmitting data like a command node. Humanity had done something that forced the Drathkori to escalate to their strongest weapon, something they didn't usually deploy unless an enemy posed a significant strategic concern. Humans, a significant concern. The thought made Lyra stand a little taller. She tapped her wrist console again. Hearthcore, activate Phase 2. A soft vibration rippled beneath her feet, and the orange shield dome began to shift. Its surface became more defined, as if layers of energy were locking into place. The air around her grew warmer, carrying the faint scent of ozone. From deep underground, a voice transmitted through the internal system. Calm, synthetic, but unmistakably human-made. Phase 2 active. Earth-borne array rising. Metal platforms emerged from the ground near the Hearthcore complex like towering pylons. They were sleek, angular, and humming with potential. As they rose higher and higher, arcs of orange light jumped between them, linking into a geometric lattice that stretched far across the mountains. Wren's voice crackled through. "Commander, I don't even know what I'm looking at." "You're looking at the one thing we hoped we'd never need," Lyra replied, "and the only thing we have left to match what's coming." The Drathkori scanner vessel emitted a deep, resonant hum, as though recognizing the threat. Its indigo light flared again. This time, the beam it released didn't aim for the Hearthcore shield. It aimed for the ground nearby, beyond the shield's protective reach. The strike hit the ridge a few miles away. It wasn't destructive in a traditional sense. No crater, no explosion. But the earth rippled, as if reality had been momentarily stretched. The Drathkori weren't trying to break the shield. They were trying to destabilize the terrain beneath it. Hearthcore's power was enormous. If the mountains beneath it faltered, Lyra clenched her jaw. "Wren, disrupt that scanner ship. Anything to break its lock." "Copy." Seconds later, Ember Wing burst through the cloud layer, sleek human fighters weaving between streaks of alien light. They pushed themselves harder than their engines were ever meant to go, climbing rapidly toward the scanning vessel. But the scanner reacted with eerie precision. It shifted, pulsed, and released a shock wave of indigo energy that washed across the sky. The human fighters shuddered under the impact, struggling to stay aligned. Wren pushed through the static. "We can't reach it. It knows every angle we try." Lyra's mind raced. The scanner wasn't simply observing humans. It was predicting them, anticipating their moves, mapping their patterns, reading them like a book. She stepped closer to the Hearthcore console. "Earthborne array," she said quietly. "Begin cognitive pattern disruption." A soft chime answered. "Cognitive disruption initializing." A ripple burst outward from the pylons, expanding into a grid of shifting orange waves. It wasn't a weapon, not in the conventional sense. It was a broadcast. A broadcast of human unpredictability. Millions of tiny fluctuations, non-linear patterns, chaotic sequences. A signature of the human mind amplified across the battlefield. The scanner ship faltered. Its indigo glow flickered. The pulsing rhythm broke. For the first time since the battle began, it hesitated. Wren seized the moment. "Emberwing, now!" Human fighters surged forward in a streak of silver and white. The scanner vessel tried to recoil, but its predictive ability had been scrambled. It lurched off course, its beam cutting harmlessly into empty sky. And then, a human missile struck its hull. The explosion was clean, controlled, not destructive enough to obliterate the vessel, but powerful enough to send it into a spin. Lyra's heart pounded. They had done it. But before relief could settle, the armada above Earth completed its formation. Dozens upon dozens of Drathkori ships aligned their converging beams into one enormous point. The convergence blast began to gather, enough power to overwhelm a planet. Wind roared across the mountains. The sky burned with indigo light. The Hearthcore array glowed brighter, pushing itself to the limit. Lyra stared upward, knowing the next moments would determine everything. Humanity was about to face the full strength of a galactic empire, and Earth had only one chance left to survive it. The mountains trembled as the sky above Earth turned into a single blinding ring of indigo light. Commander Lyra Masson stood braced against the rising wind, watching as the Drathkori armada poured unimaginable power into one focused point. It felt like standing beneath a star being forged in real time. The convergence blast, an attack so devastating that entire civilizations had vanished under its weight, was seconds away from release. Lyra tightened her grip on the console. Hearthtor, begin Phase 3. A long pause followed, filled only by the rising hum of alien energy. Then, a soft tone replied. Phase 3 confirmed. Earthborn array at maximum potential. The pylons around the mountain brightened, their orange light sharpening into long, luminous pillars that pierced the clouds above. The air grew warm, almost comforting, like the glow of a campfire before a storm. This was the final stage of Project Hearthcore. Not a weapon of destruction, a weapon of survival. The Earthborn shield expanded outward, growing thicker, denser, interlocking with unseen layers of energy forming deep underground. It was fueled by geothermal veins, fusion cores, and a complex network of superconductive tunnels beneath the crust. Every ounce of power Earth had ever prepared for its darkest day surged into the sky. Wren's voice crackled through the comm. "Commander, we're watching this from above. I've never seen anything like it. Earth looks alive." Lyra didn't respond. She couldn't tear her focus from the armada above. The Drathkori weren't hesitating anymore. They weren't recalculating. They weren't probing. They were about to strike with enough force to break a planet. A rising pitch filled the air, vibrating through the mountains. The convergence blast reached its threshold. Wren's voice grew urgent. "They're firing." The armada unleashed its strike. A colossal beam of indigo energy erupted downward, crossing the distance between orbit and atmosphere in the span of a heartbeat. Clouds vaporized instantly. The air crackled with static. Every shadow across the Rockies twisted into strange, wavering shapes. Then the beam hit the Earthborn shield. The impact was silent at first. No explosion, no shockwave, just a flash of blinding light that washed across the entire mountain range. Then the sound arrived, a deep, resonant roar like thunder rolling across continents. The Earthborn shield strained under the pressure. Thin cracks of light formed across its surface, as if the energy dome were made of glass. Lyra felt the ground shake beneath her. "Hearthcore," she shouted, "redirect all power to the upper lattice now." A burst of orange surged upward through the shield, reinforcing the failing sections. The convergence blast pressed harder, widening, intensifying, like an avalanche of energy seeking to crush everything beneath it. The Drathkori expected the shield to collapse. It didn't. Instead, it pushed back. A ripple passed through the array, subtle at first, then growing into a visible wave of orange light that traveled up the length of the indigo beam. Ren gasped through the comm. "They're losing stability. The blast is collapsing." The Earthborn array wasn't destroying the convergence blast. It was absorbing it, turning the raw energy into fuel, redirecting it through underground channels, channeling it into the global grid. The more the Drathkori poured in, the stronger the shield became. Lyra stared in awe. This is what Hearthcore was built for. The Armada's formation began to waver. Ships tilted off balance as the feedback surged through their ranks. The scanner vessel, damaged from Emberwing's strike, spun slowly, unable to stabilize. The Armada tried to cut power. Too late. The Earthborn array released everything it had absorbed. An enormous pillar of orange light burst upward from the mountains, stretching into the heart of the convergence blast. The energy detonated harmlessly into space in a brilliant cascade of shimmering sparks. The Drathkori formation broke. Not destroyed, not crippled, but stunned. They had unleashed their strongest weapon, and the humans had survived. More than that, they had met the Empire's full might and forced it back. Ren's voice came through softly, almost reverently. "Commander, they're retreating." One by one, Drathkori ships pulled away from Earth, their engines glowing a dull indigo as they slipped into deep space. No parting threats, no final strike, just silence. Lyra felt her knees weaken as the realization settled over her. Humanity had done the impossible. Outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched by an empire older than human history, Earth had stood unbroken. She watched the last glimmer of the retreating Armada fade into the darkness of space. Ren's voice returned. "So, what now?" Lyra looked toward the Hearthcore facility, still glowing softly beneath the stars, and let a slow breath escape. "Now," she said, "the galaxy knows what Earth can do, and humanity's story is just beginning." The wind shifted, carrying the quiet hum of Hearthcore across the ridge. A new dawn was coming, and humanity would meet it with unshakable fire.